Help Midvision keep bringing you material by becoming a Patreon member, as well as PayPal. Like, share, subscribe, and comment. Join the Patreon to get early access to videos and check out the website. Dr. Price, this is not a question, but a fan emailed me, and they said, "Hi Derek, I found your show recently, and I've since become completely addicted to it. It's so intellectually stimulating, and it's fantastic that you're tapping into such wealths of knowledge. I envy you for having such an awesome job. Since you and Dr. Bob were addressing the issue of the resurrection recently, I have a suggestion which you may be interested in. I'm only proposing this to you as something you might find worth looking into for historical reasons, as it comes to fascinate me recently, the Shroud of Turin. Since it's something which has polarized Christians for a long time and it never seems to die, you may find it interesting as someone studying the historicity of Jesus. There's a great video I found recently, a 20-minute TEDx talk by Barry Schwartz, a documenting photographer who analyzed the Shroud in 1978. It's a great quick run-through of the science behind the debate. If you aren't interested, it's all good, mate. It's just a little suggestion. Have a great weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your videos. Archie." Dr. Price, the Shroud of Turin is still used by many, not all, apologists and like-minded people who want to prove Jesus did exist. We see his imprint. There's like blood stains, and you could tell where someone was in there that had a beard and fit. He looked like Jesus. Like, we all know what he looked like. What are your thoughts on the Shroud of Turin? Do you have critical thoughts of it? Just if you don't mind, give us your opinion on what you believe is going on.
Yeah, I think it is a fake, like all these medieval relics were. To suggest that isn't to try to suggest people were trying to pull the wool over the eyes of their contemporaries. I mean, there might have been. There's always been plenty of that going on too. But it could be that such a thing was made as a sort of an icon. And just like, for instance, there's a place, a monastery off of Route 46 in New Jersey, where I used to live, Holy Face Monastery, and they had a copy, an admitted duplicate of the Shroud, as like an object of contemplation and devotion. The point not being the piece of cloth, of course, but the idea that Jesus had suffered for you and all that. Well, nobody thought that's the real thing. They knew it. Well, it may be that the original was created for that purpose, and so that it might be a gratuitous inference that it's supposed to be the actual Shroud of Jesus. There's no way to know anymore. But it seems to me the carbon dating done with great care on this thing years ago now has settled the question that the thing stems from the 14th century, and which just happens to be the same century in which the Pope produced the artist who confessed to having made it. I mean, of course, it could be that the church just didn't like the idea of the Shroud. They're always a little suspicious of apparitions of the Virgin Mary and all that stuff, because they like to keep the church and Rome as the focus of devotion. They don't like outlying centers of power, you might say. That goes way, way back. So it could be that the confession was a fake, but why think so? I mean, it meshes perfectly with the carbon dating, for Pete's sake. Also, Joseph Macron, I think his name is a great, probably the greatest authority on pigments and paint. Because, of course, you use that in analyzing great works of art and all that from the past. And he says the stains on the shroud of the blood of Jesus, it's red paint. it's red ochre, I think he says, and if it were blood, it would not retain its color, and it wouldn't look red after all these years. I mean, forget about the 14th century. I mean, back to the time of Jesus. People have said, oh, yes, but there are microscopic deposits from plants that only existed in the Middle East. Look, I don't care. You can explain that a bunch of ways, but that doesn't trump carbon dating. And that it's like once you start attacking the methodology of science, as they do with creationism, right? They have to start fudging things and getting into pseudoscience. Well, that's what I think so-called syndenology is, shroudology. And there's other problems. The drops of blood on the forehead. See, crown of thorns. No, you wouldn't have, with an imposed cloth, you wouldn't have discrete drops anymore visible. And on it goes. And did the ancients have the ability to create an image like this that seems to be negative in some way? I forget all the details. Well, yeah, people have done it with known ancient methods, including I'm thinking of all these different guys named Joe. The one that does on the Committee for the Scientific Investigation of the Paranormal. Oh, good God, I can't believe it. He's been a friend of mine for years, and I can't think of his last name. Anyway, he's done it, and other people have too. So it's not. And there's another interesting theory that that if this were really the impression made by a corpse, the fact that it has wounds like those ascribed to Jesus could mean that this was a print taken of a medieval flagellant. You know, these guys that walked around in the time of the Black Plague and all that, lashing themselves to atone for the sins that they figured had brought on the plague as a punishment from God. That a friend of mine suggested that's I've never heard it anywhere else, but that makes a lot of sense too. It's the right historical period. You would have this result, but I just think that it's people are desperate. And of course, one other thing that Shroud apologists like to say is that the carbon dating can be disregarded because there are patches on the shroud from when it was nearly consumed in a fire, which is known, that's certainly true. And you can even tell where the patches are very clearly. And they said the scientists were so stupid that they took samples to test from the obvious patches. Get out of here. That's just ridiculous. It's like more of what Albert Schweitzer called the crooked and fragile thinking of Christian apologetics. And so it's just bunk, which as a North Carolinian I'm proud to say, since the word bunk comes from Buncombe County here. So, oh boy.